We are here at Fort Benning at Phillips Range, home of the Army Marksmanship Unit, and one of the events that had an opportunity to shoot during this competition was National Match Course rifle shooting as issue rat grade equipment. I have here one of the America's top service rifle shooters, Captain Freeman, who's a member of the Army Reserve Marksmanship Program and multiple national champion in various different events. So we'll start off with some of your previous accomplishments in the service rifle competition.
Just this recent past year, I won the Persian Trophy. I shot a 496 at the team match at Camp Perry this past year. It's a national match course of fire, no sighters, but as a team match, shot a 496. Also was runner-up to the Mountain Man and third place national championship this year. Also won an inter-service and the Creedmoor Cup, Eastern Creedmoor Cup this year. Okay. Or this past year, I should say, 2015.
Okay, so now shooting match grade equipment for service rifle, your average score, now that's a 500-point national match course for rifle, shot out to 600 yards. What is your average typically?
Let's say average anywhere from a 492 to a 495. I know that's not an average, but that's an average left range and right limit of what I can do. Some days better, 497, 496. Some days worse, 490, 489. Weather dependent, of course. But sure. Good day, 493. I'm good for 493s, 494s.
Okay. Now that's of course with your CMP or NRA legal service rifle gear. Give us a quick breakdown of what that match grade equipment consists of.
That equipment, of course, is a shooting jacket, hardback shooting coat with a very accurized AR-15. Of course, match grade barrel, match grade two-stage trigger. I personally use a Geisley trigger and float tube. And the sights are also quarter-minute angle, highly, accurate within those clicks. It's quarter-minute every time you move the sight.
Okay. So it will actually point and shoot exactly where you want.
Oh yeah, the gun is capable of 1 minute of angle. If you shot it 20 times, it would hold a 1-inch group at any given distance out to 600. So it's no more than a minute of angle gun.
So shooting as issue rat grade equipment, you went with an Iron Sight M4 for this event, correct?
Yes, I kind of got told I was shooting a M4, and it was highly used as a lot of the phosphate was wore off in places from soldiers cleaning it over and over, so it was a training rifle. I put a carrying handle sight, but it was straight off of a A4. It was not match grade. It had half elevation, half windage, completely military standard issue carrying handle.
So the exact same gear any soldier, any Marine has ever been issued in terms of an M4, and of course with a shorter sight radius then too.
Yes. Okay. So, and gigantic front sight post, the 72 thousandths front sight post.
Gotcha. So your initial prediction was what would that equate to as far as a score shooting no coat, rat grade equipment, unaccurized, as issue, what every soldier and Marine is issued?
I actually, me and Sergeant Buell here was talking, and I decided that low 420s was going to win it. A couple of the AMU shooters thought a 430 would win it, but I was thinking a 420 would be actually the winning score.
So, Captain Freeman, what are your predictions about this event?
I predict that the
at this time, relay number one,
definitely not going to exceed today. Going for breaking 400 is my goal.
Okay, what do you think the match winner will end up with?
Probably in the low 420s.
Okay.
So I'm just hoping to be
one of those guys.
400, maybe get in the 420s and maybe win it.
All right.
We'll see.
And that would end up being approximately 15% reduction off of your normal average then.
Yes.
So what did we end up with actually for a score?
I had exactly a 420, so I was not far off my mark at all.
So very good prediction. I guess that goes to the experience level there too. Okay, so that was a predictable amount of point difference. What were some of the particulars you noticed shooting no coat as your issue uniform, rat grade equipment, M855 green tip ball ammo? What were some of the particulars you noticed in shooting this?
Just a breakdown, kind of. I have to go like position to position because each one of them had their own little quirks. Standing, of course. I shot off the magazine, but off a 30-round magazine instead of the 20-round. That's how I fire. And that M4, of course, the weight, it only being, with magazine and everything, under 6 pounds. Okay. There was a lot of quick movement in the sights. It was not slow, and the sight radius was also a big issue as well. The larger rear aperture, larger front sight post made it a lot harder to actually have the front sight post and target. The target's never in focus, but that where it gives the appearance where the everything in the field of view is a little bit more in focus. Front sight, of course, being the only thing that's in focus. It was either you're looking at the front sight and the target is extremely blurry. So there was a lot of just had to trust that what you saw was the target. So there was a lot more movement in the sights, and then of course the trigger was the biggest thing to overcome. That 3-round burst trigger having that burst cam. So what I was doing when I dry fired, I found the lighter of the. Of course, it's a 6-lobe burst cam, so the 2 lobes are light, 2 lobes are medium weight, 2 lobes are heavy weight to stop the burst cam. And I used of course, I timed it to where I found the lighter of in the cycle. So then I would fire the shot, and then I would just cycle, just rack it back, click, and then I knew the next trigger pull would be back to the opposing end of the small lobe for the lighter trigger. I was just trying to get it where my trigger was a little bit more predictable than 6 pounds and then 8 pounds and then 9.5 pounds, and then cycle back through those very varying weights that a 3-round burst trigger has. I use the same position that I do. I did actually a lot of the exact same thing built in my position. It was just a lot more wobble area because of that, lack of coat and the weight of the rifle itself being a factor.
Mark 45! Mark 47. What's that? Mark 47. Mark 47.
Now that was differences you found shooting from completely standing. What for rapid sitting?
Rapid sitting, of course, I did not sling up due to the barrel influence because these do have the sling swivel attached directly to the barrel. So I decided to not sling up. I did make a mistake of my sitting position. I got into a cross-legged sitting position, just like you would in high power. But I found that's where the back of my elbow, both elbows were in front of my shins. That works with a sling. However, I kind of realized afterwards it would have probably been better if I'd have put the tip of my elbow in the bends of my legs to give me a little bit more upright position, a little bit more bone support, because my arms would have been a little bit more straight up and down. When I was leaning that far over, I noticed that I was having to, completely use a lot of muscle tension. So the entire time I was shooting, it was just 8 ring to 8 ring, just like a shiver, just back and forth, 8 ring to 8 ring, and then just trying to squeeze the trigger. And sometimes it went off in the middle, sometimes it doesn't. And that's what my group showed was 8 ring to 8 ring. And that was just really the movement that I saw in the sights.
And I imagine too, because during the rapid fire string, you had to work with the differing pull weights each time, so it was 3 different trigger weights every time you were shooting through that string.
Yeah, so it was very unpredictable. So it's not like shooting service rifle where there's movement in the sights even when you're shooting sitting rapid. Sometimes it appears it's not moving, but there still is. But even when I'm having a bad day and there's movement in the sights, it's mid-ring 10 to mid-ring 10 on a worse day with a service rifle, but you're still able to squeeze through the trigger and you're going to catch a 10. Or this was the wobble area was so much greater that there was no way of catching 10s ever shot. And then the trigger weight, you would be in the middle. You would be like, okay, I'd like it to go off now, and it wouldn't. And then it would, move out, and then that's when it would decide to go off. As I was trying to squeeze the trigger as smoothly to the rear as I could.
That extra flight.
Line ready.
Yeah.
Ready on the left. Ready on the right. All ready on the firing line. Your time will begin, and you may commence fire when your targets appear.
Do not chamber till you're down, in position.
Ceasefire. Time has expired. Lock and clear all weapons. Make the line safe.
Now, when you went to rapid prone, what were any differences there?
Rapid prone is they were letting us use the magazine on the ground, which of course, once again, did not sling up due to the barrel influence of actually torquing the barrel down. So I shot just prone rapid, what we consider standard combat style. There's a lot of differences because you're a lot lower. You're not up on your elbows. You have a much more flared out position just because you are so much lower. And also where you're shooting service rifle, you're relaxing this back right shoulder. This style, you actually kind of have to muscle your shoulder forward and get that flat spot on your shoulder because you don't have a shooting jacket to catch that buttstock.
Okay.
So it's what we consider standard combat style. I grab around the magazine well. So like my top 2 fingers are on the magazine well, the bottom 2 fingers are on the magazine itself. And that's a very steady position. But at that distance, that's when the gun really showed its signs of wear, and also the ammo's capability of shooting well. And then that's when the group opened up to, it was a 20-inch group at that distance, even though what I saw through the sights was a much better, much steadier and all that. Not saying I was going to shoot a minute of angle with that position, but it would have been good for 2 minutes of angle, 2.5 minutes of angle, but the group showed it was more, it was closer to 4.5 minutes of angle. So that's what the gun, gun and ammo combination was only capable of about, the one I particularly had, 4.5 minutes of angle at best.
And that's been a standard for rat grade guns, is like if it's under 4 minutes, it's considered serviceable.
Yes. So that's you will get guns that shoot better than that. There are 2-minute guns out there. I just particularly didn't have one of those at that time. And then with the green tip ammo, you have the flyers that just unexplained, 7s and things like that are even farther outside the 4.5 minute cone of fire.
Your time will begin, and you may commence fire when your targets appear.
So for the long line, it actually shot at 500 with the reduced target. So it was the same reference size as the 600-yard MR1, but sized and scaled for the actual 500-yard portion for the slow fire. How did that work out?
Oh, well, that, still turned into a 4.5 minute gun.
Okay.
Didn't get better as you went back. So then that turned into, 6-ring group. So you just kind of had to, it was unfortunate, and you wanted better score and a better group, but I knew it was not going to happen. So I accepted the, low 6 that I didn't point, and the high right 7 that I didn't point, and I just tried to center up that cone of fire as good as I could. And I think I ended up, I don't remember my exact score, but it was in the low 160s back at the 600, where normally, like at the national championship this past year, I only dropped 2 points in 3 20-round strings.
Okay, so that would have been 60 rounds for record, dropping a grand total of
2 points. Okay. And then here I dropped 40 points in 20 shots.
Slight difference with the gear there. Given you predicted about a 420, which is exactly what you shot, had the rifle been a little bit better quality in terms of a rat grade, like you said, it's possible to see an honest 2-minute rat grade AR M16 M4. How much do you think that would have helped your score?
I would say if I would have had just, one of those unicorn guns that shot 2 MOA, I'd have probably been in probably a 440. It'd have probably picked me up 20 points. And then that's, I don't want to say that's the best that anybody could ever shoot, but I'd say that's probably about maxing out that course of fire with a rat grade, a 2-minute rat grade, probably a 440.
So it would be possible to shoot within about 10% of your normal match grade scores then if the rifle was even still rat grade, but a better quality one.
Yeah, it's 10%. It doesn't sound like a lot, but that's a big 10%.
Sure.
very big 10%.
And that's really what you're gaining. It's not the match grade equipment magically making you a better shooter. It's that last 10% of, bringing the score up from the capability you already have.
Yes, yes. It's just showing your true capability, because the service rifles, the bullet goes where you point them every shot. So that shot that's out is because you did something wrong, misalignment of the sights, trigger, position. Where this one, it was just, you're not real, you wasn't getting good feedback. And it would be hard to actually train. It'd be much harder to train a marksman, because, you can tell them, all the fundamentals, they can do everything perfectly, but then shoot a 6 at 600 yards. And then you're just not getting that good positive feedback, or I shouldn't say positive, because sometimes not all shots are positive, but the correct feedback for what you're doing, and then you can correct yourself, like, oh, okay, so, I wasn't, looking at the front sight, therefore that's why I shot that 7. Where here, you might not look at the front sight and accidentally shoot an X because you zigged and the bullet zagged.
Okay. Now, in terms of working at distance, you normally shoot an 80 grain load at the long line for 600 out of your
Berger 75. Okay. Also, Berger 75s also use those, the 75 VLD or the Sierra 80 grain.
Okay.
Either one of those two.
How did that difference in ammunition, your match grade load being one of those two projectiles versus the issue M855 green tip, how did that affect your ability to call and adjust for wind?
Oh, it was everything. The wind would pick up, you would click, and you were having to be very aggressive with the clicks. Now, being on the shorter sight radius, that carrying handle is designed for an M16 sight radius, so these clicks actually were more 3/4 minute clicks, closer to that, much closer to 3/4 than they were halves. So I was putting 2.5, 5 clicks of wind on the rifle. That would normally be 2.5 minutes, but I'm going to do some public math here. That's getting closer to 3.5 minutes, and that was just what I would probably run a minute and a half with an 80 grain or a 75 VLD. Mm-hmm. So it was pretty much the match grade loads are cutting the wind in half at that distance, and then it would even be greater if you was to shoot farther out. It'd be exponential, but it was the wind was double what your normal 80 grain load would be.
Okay. Did you have any other experience talking with some of the other competitors for any of their experience or feedback from different things they tried?
One of the fellow competitors, they decided they were going to sling up and go against good advice. Okay. And they ended up with a very bad score. I think they ended up with like a 42 at the 3 rapid.
And that would have been out of 100 possible.
Yes, out of 100 possible, not out of 50, where I ended up with an 83. It was not perfectly centered because we didn't have a whole lot of this, not like I have it dialed in perfectly. I was about a minute high of being perfectly centered. But, and I probably could have squeaked a 85, 86 out if it would have been perfectly centered up, where that individual ended up with a 42, and I don't even know if they got hits in the black. So what we're doing is that would equate to a miss, on in a combat situation, those would have been 10 misses, as opposed to what I did, I would have had 8 hits and only 2 misses on that size target.
So even beyond the lower precision potential, the differences you're getting in point of impact just because of what influence that has versus the float tube you'd normally have on a competition gun.
Yes. Float tube would definitely, then you could get in those, you could use a sling, you could get those steadier positions at, sitting and prone, that, I don't want to, put a point number to that, but that would definitely increase my sitting rapid score. Because these guns, even at 200 yards, your 10 ring is, what is that, a 3 minute of angle? Side of the 10 ring is 7 inches, so do some more math here. Yeah, get roughly 3 minutes, a little more, and that's what a good shooting gun is capable of. So it's possible to shoot a very high 90s score at sitting rapid with a rack grade rifle, but if you were able to sling in, not being able to sling in was causing a way more wobble, a lot more the recoil management was a lot tougher. So then that's why I believe I shot a 90 at that in that rapid fire, and wasn't all that mad about that score.
Right. So it sounds like if you could modify or change one thing about issue rack grade AR-15, M16, M4, it sounds like the float tube would probably be one of your first picks.
Float tube, and then a close second would be a trigger group that's at least more consistent, which is what the military is currently doing. They went back to a full auto trigger, therefore eliminating the burst cam. So you would have at least a more consistent trigger. It would be nice if they were also a little bit lighter, closer to 5 pounds as opposed to closer to 10 pounds. But yeah, float tube would definitely help. And then that steadier position, even if you had a burst cam, just the fact that your position would be so much more steady, then that, creepy trigger would not be as big of a deal. It would actually kind of, the float tube would help out the trigger issues, but a better trigger is not necessarily going to help out the fact that you can't sling in and the loss of accuracy due to the lack of a float tube.
Excellent. Well, very good tips, and thank you for your time, sir.
All right, no problem. Thank you.